Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the spring concert of the Elko Community Orchestra. As you can tell, we are raring to go, but before we get started, we would like to ask your permission and your involvement. Just a little bit, a few things. All electronic devices and small children, please, are to be set to silent. If you need to exit or enter the theater at any time during our concert, please do so between musical selections. And by all means, we love it when you show your appreciation. There's nothing better for us. That's the paycheck we get, is a nice, rousing round of applause. But there is a difference between a football game and a concert. Please, no whistling and yelling and things like that. Luckily, most of you have been here before. You all know the great concert orchestra etiquette that we all enjoy here, and thank you very much for treating this as a cultural event that it is. As we begin, we would like to take a moment to express all of our great gratitude to Elko County School District, to the high school here, for providing a weekly rehearsal space for us. This is an outstanding theater, and they are wonderful hosts, and for hosts for our concerts, as well as many others. Special thanks to Casey Bennett and Janine Hoskins for the many hours that they spend managing this theater. We are very appreciative of all that you do. And one quick thing, we're being viewed tonight on a stream. We're very happy that you're here, but there are a lot of family members and friends of the orchestra who cannot be here, and we're being viewed coast to coast tonight from Carson City all the way to New Jersey. Thank you to our friends and family in those far-off places for watching us on our stream. And now, if you would please stand up, take off your hats, and join us in the Star Spangled Banner. I don't know who to thank for all of the words in this particular introduction. I thought it was going to be Kathy Colbert. She swears it was not, but someone, I had to write my notes on the back here, phonetic spelling. So. The Iliad was commissioned by Los Angeles Philharmonic Association to honor the rich history of cinema, arts, and culture in Los Angeles. The Iliad is one of two ancient epic poems attributed to Homer, which describes events at the end of the Trojan War. Now, Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, has been taken by Paris, a prince of Troy. Helen's husband, Menelaus, and his brother, Agamemnon, invoke a sacred oath and raise 1,000 ships to secure her return. Legendary warriors such as Achilles and Odysseus are among the many who answer the call. Agamemnon has to sacrifice his own daughter in order to ensure good winds and speed on their journey to Troy. The Iliad picks up after 10 years of war, and Troy's fortress walls still stand strong. There's conflict between Agamemnon and Achilles, who has left at the fighting. Patroclus, Achilles' close friend, tries to plead with him to return, but Achilles remains unconvinced. Patroclus manages to get Achilles to lend him his armor in hopes that he can lead and inspire the soldiers. He was hoping that they would mistake him for Achilles. During heavy fighting, Patroclus is killed by Prince Hector, the firstborn and heir to Troy. Achilles cannot contain his grief and rage and returns to the fighting, killing many Trojans out of revenge. And during that epic battle, Achilles slays Hector, who tells Achilles that he too will die. In the hopes of humiliating the Trojans, Achilles displays Hector's body for 12 days behind his chariot and drags it around the city for all of Troy to see. Priam, king of Troy, begs Achilles for his son's body. The elderly king appeals to Achilles' humanity as a father, and Achilles is ultimately moved. The Iliad ends with the people of Troy burying and mourning Hector, their prince. The Elko Community Orchestra presents now for you the Iliad. Ride of the Valkyries is a high-energy Act III prelude to Richard Wagner's 1856 opera Die Walküre, depicting mythological warrior maidens flying on winged horses to transport fallen heroes to Valhalla. It tells the story of Brunhilde and her sisters gathering in a mountain storm, carrying the souls of the dead to the afterlife. We hope you enjoy Ride of the Valkyries. The Victory at Sea theme, composed by Richard Rodgers, is a powerful orchestral piece that captures the essence of naval warfare during World War II. Victory at Sea was a documentary television series that aired on the NBC television network from 1952 to 1953. The series consisted of 26 episodes and was notable for its use of historical footage and a compelling musical score that enhanced the storytelling. Here now is Victory at Sea. The title of this piece was inspired by the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, and that is to say of Paul Revere, William Dawes, and Samuel Prescott, who together carried out a plan to warn the revolutionaries that the British were coming. There were 3 riders that historic evening rather than only the one described in Longfellow's epic poem. Beyond the title, the music departs from the content of the poem and instead explores 3 tableaus of human equestrian collaboration. One, dignified and martial, a second, festive and lighthearted, and a third, tranquil and thoughtful. They are presented sometimes individually and sometimes concurrently. Please enjoy 3 Riders' Overture. As you hear prairie dance, imagine being transported back to a simpler time in early America, as Western expansion was first beginning. A simple tune starts in the clarinets. As the melody passes through the ensemble, it grows louder before culminating in a rhythmic, Americana-esque fiddle tune that would make Copeland proud. After this spirited climax, the music winds down before ending quietly, again with the clarinets, precisely as it began. This is prairie dance. General Lee is a 1943 march composed by Carl L. King that pays homage to the famous 19th century riverboat, the Robert E. Lee, not that Confederate general. King, a prolific circus bandmaster, wrote it as a lively, fast-paced circus march. It is an invigorating quick-step march that encapsulates the vigor and valor of its namesake. This arrangement was realized from a piano score copyrighted in 1943. Immerse yourself in the vibrant rhythms of Brazil with Brazilian Polka by Cesar Giovannini. This multicultural piece infuses traditional polka with exotic Brazilian flair. We feature our own Aaron Pellegrini on accordion. While this title states that this work is a polka, the reality is it is a bright, energetic, tuneful samba. The title is only an attempt at clever musical humor. Featuring the violins, the work begins with a brief introduction by the strings playing spiccato with their bows lightly bouncing off their strings. Then the orchestra appears with the strings stating the melody, or saltando, with short strokes of the bow. The introduction and melodic line are then heard again, this time with an added obbligato, which leads to the new and robust full ensemble strain, and yet another statement of the original melody, this time in a new key. The work ends with an energetically presented tutti, with everyone together. Ladies and gentlemen, Brazilian polka. 175 keys on that thing. I think he touched them all. Aaron Pellegrini. Barnum and Bailey's favorite, often referred to as the granddaddy of circus marches, was composed by Carl King in 1913. King's earliest known compositions date from 1909, and this piece was written, it was only his 5th year composing. King was asked by a bandmaster of the Barnum and Bailey Circus to write a march for the circus. This has become his most famous composition, being called the finest work written to celebrate the greatest show on earth. And it is one of the most recognizable marches of all time. Classical music has appeared in movies since the beginning of motion pictures. And as a result, many can argue that the main character in any movie is the music score. Music sets the mood, changes or enhances what is being said or done, and foreshadows in ways words never could. This medley consists of 3 iconic moments where cinema and music blended and left audiences speechless. For instance, the 2001 A Space Odyssey opens with such power that many forget the music wasn't written specifically for it. Composed by German composer Richard Strauss in 1896, Also Sprach Zarathustra was premiered that same year. The entire work is roughly 33 minutes long. However, audiences are mostly familiar with the first minute and a half of the opening statement, filling theaters and concert halls with one of, if not the most iconic orchestral fanfares of all time. For those younger members of our audience who don't remember the bone-crushing theme of Space Odyssey, you might think about the doll-crushing scene at the beginning of Barbie. The King's Speech, when England's Prince Albert must ascend the throne as King George VI, Elizabeth finds someone to assist the new king with a speech impediment. During the most critical part of this saga, King George must deliver a radio announcement, putting his studies and practice to the ultimate test, as in their minds, the people of England must not know that he suffers a stutter, as they may lessen his effectiveness with the people depending on him. Movie director Tom Hooper chose the Allegretto from Beethoven's Symphony No. 7, composed in 1812 and 1813, for the building intensity from a quiet whisper to a triumphant and viscerally powerful moment in orchestral history. And finally, The Truman Show used music that exemplified the slow awakening throughout the movie. While many different melodies appear, the scene where Truman is driving to work captures audiences everywhere as a familiar piano tune brings levity and a lightheartedness to the scene. Originally composed as the rondo in Piano Sonata No. 11 by Mozart, the melody has appeared in countless movies and television commercials, making it one of the most popular and frequently heard melodies of all time. Also known as Rondo alla Turca, it demonstrates a playfulness, yet is a very challenging work that pianists around the world eventually attempt, leaving their audiences smiling. We hope that Connie Muir can do that for you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you From Quilts to Cameras, Strauss, Beethoven, and Mozart Go to Hollywood. Simon wrote The Sound of Silence when he was just 21 years old, often working in the bathroom of his parents' home in Queens, New York, because the tiles and the darkness allowed for deep, quiet concentration and appropriate acoustics. Art Garfunkel explained that the song addresses the inability of people to communicate with each other, not particularly internationally, but especially emotionally. While often interpreted as a reference to Sandy Greenberg's blindness, a friend Garfunkel supported, the opening line, "Hello darkness, my old friend," is also interpreted as a general nod to the solitude Simon embraced to create his art. Originally released as a quiet acoustic track on their debut album, it failed. Producer Tom Wilson later added electric instruments without telling the duo and released it again as a single. And that hit #1 in early 1966. The song has become a powerful anthem of the 20th century with its enduring message about the need for a connection still resonating today. In the most moving adaptation of this song, the Elko Community Orchestra proudly presents Patrick Warfel on the alto flute. gets me every time. As we near our patriotic conclusion of tonight's concert, we'd like to remind you that if you like what you've heard, and we hope that you have, we would love it if you consider making a donation to the orchestra as you leave throughout the lobby tonight. Your generosity helps to fund new music purchases for this group. Every little bit counts, and we truly appreciate your support. If anyone in the audience is a musician and would like to join the orchestra, rehearsals will resume on Thursday, August 20th. Potential members can reach out via Facebook. And we have a Facebook group, Elko Community Orchestra. Ask any questions, and everyone is encouraged to like and follow our Facebook page for updates from the orchestra as well. As we celebrate America's 250th birthday this year, we continue with this patriotic fantasia featuring 4 popular themes: America the Beautiful, Chester, America, or My Country, 'Tis of Thee, and Battle Hymn of the Republic. In the summer of 1893, poet and English professor Kathleen Lee Bates traveled to Colorado College to teach a summer course. After a breathtaking carriage ride to the summit of Pikes Peak, she was deeply moved by the sweeping views of the Great Plains. The inspiring scenery prompted her to pen the famous poem, which later became the lyrics for America the Beautiful. Chester is a patriotic anthem composed by William Billings and sung during the American Revolutionary War. First written for the 1770 songbook, The New England Psalm Singer, it was revised in 1778, which is the version best known today. My Country, 'Tis of Thee was written in 1831 by 24-year-old Baptist seminary student Samuel Francis Smith to fit the existing melody of the British national anthem. It served as an unofficial U.S. national anthem for nearly 100 years, highlighting patriotism, liberty, and religious devotion. The Battle Hymn of the Republic was written in November of 1861 by abolitionist Julia Ward Howe, who set new, solemn lyrics to a popular Union marching song. Inspired by a visit to Union Army camps near Washington, D.C., Howe intended to provide a more dignified, religious, and righteous tone to the war effort, framing the fight against slavery as a holy cause. Ladies and gentlemen, the Elko Community Orchestra gives you Freedom Finale. Give us time for one more. All right, thank you, that's what we wanted. The Stars and Stripes Forever, with the possible exception of the Star-Spangled Banner, no musical composition has done more to arouse the patriotic spirit of America than this, John Philip Sousa's most beloved composition. It has been used with considerable effectiveness to generate patriotic feeling ever since its introduction in Philadelphia on May 14th of 1897, when the staid Public Ledger reported, "It is stirring enough to rouse the American eagle from its crag and set him to shriek exultantly while he hurls his arrows at the aurora borealis." The Stars and Stripes Forever has found its place in history. There was a vigorous response whenever it was performed, and audiences began to rise as though it were the national anthem. Sousa was very emotional in speaking of his own patriotism. When asked why he composed this march, he would insist that its strains were divinely inspired. Sousa explained that the three themes of the final trio were meant to typify the three sections of the United States. The broad melody, the main theme, represents the North. The South is represented by the famous piccolo obbligato, and the West by the bold countermelody of the trombones. By almost any musical standard, the Stars and Stripes Forever is a masterpiece, even without its patriotic significance. But by virtue of that patriotic significance, it is by far the most popular march ever written, and its popularity is by no means limited to the United States. Abroad, it has always symbolized America. It has been recorded more often than practically any other composition ever written. After the copyright expired in 1953, over 50 new arrangements appeared in the United States alone. Ladies and gentlemen, the Elko Community Orchestra presents our national march, The Stars and Stripes Forever.